Hi all, good evening. Thank you for joining the live. Solicitor Ronald Onyango here. Um, I am going to be live today on YouTube. Right, thank you very much. So now what I wanted to do is to look at some of the essentials which are paramount for any business before starting a successful business, which should be any business, including this construction and engineering services. The most important thing to start with would be a market research. It's actually the first step towards a successful business. The prospective owners of this business would need to have carried out market research of what business they want to carry out. And for today's purposes, it to be on construction and engineering services. That will include the next step being able to ensure that they have a business plan, which is essentially a comprehensive business plan of how the business intends to operate, and it should include things which are not exhaustive, things like business ideas. What is the idea of this business, the analysis and the financial forecast, and the strategy of how the business intends to operate. This is normally done by either an accountant or a business plan writer, targeted and tailored specifically to meeting the Home Office requirement. Then, of course, the next thing would be to have financial planning. Financial planning, this is essential to understanding the financial requirements and the financial needs of the business and where the sources of funding are going to come from. Any business, as it goes without say, will require some element of funding to start. The good news under the sales sponsorship is, and I know that's a question that I'm asked frequently, what's the minimum amount of money or what's the maximum? There's no maximum and there's no minimum. It's essentially what the business requires. As long as you're able to demonstrate that you've got sufficient funds, which are synonymous and aligned with what your business needs, then that is good enough. And that means that you can scale your business, as big as you like or as small as you like. Then the next thing that normally needs to be considered, the legal and regulatory compliances, which means it's basic things like we need to have the company registered, the company house properly. Before that is done, there are compliance that needs to be adhered to, including Home Office compliance, things like right to work checks and the rest. Don't just put your name down there, because obviously it should be flashed out by the office that you've not complied. And then, of course, there are tax obligations which need to be set up right. Normally, we'd work with accountants who would be able to set up the VAT numbers and, of course, registering the company for corporate taxation, which is at HMRC. So the accountants are usually quite useful, and we work very closely with them to do that. And then, of course, depending on the business, you'd have specific licenses. Every business will usually have its own license, or permits that the business may require. And this will vary from business to business. If you're working in a heavily regulated area, of course, you need more licenses and from the regulator. If you're working in an area that just is generic, then of course that may not be necessary, but you still require business permits to do so, which if ignored could cause serious problems. And then the last aspect on that is consulting with experts and advisors. There'll be various experts involved, not without a doubt, depending on the business. Now today we're going to be checking on what are some of the opportunities that one may consider and under the auspice of construction and engineering services. And as I said earlier, this could also fall under professional services, but I think I decided to split it. When we've spoken before on the professional advisory roles, where we've focused on accountancy roles, legal firms, and so on and so forth, and advisory services, I specifically chose to put this separately so that at least we can go into details of some of the roles that may be available, businesses, ideas, so to speak, and how this can be structured. Now, the first, as an example, and this I prepared a short list. This is not exhaustive, and I'll go through a few of them to give you a flavor of some of them. One may want to form a quantity surveying firm. as an example. This is a business that is normally where you would have they manage construction costs and contracts, and the role that would be available at that particular in this particular one, it would be as a quantity surveyor. In this circumstance, if one is a qualified quantity surveyor, it is possible to have a quantity surveying consultancy firm and be able to structure it in a way that they provide themselves, or there will be a role available, hopefully in the business, of a structured quantity surveyor. This would qualify because there is a specific code allocated to it, and a code 2433, which enables somebody working that capacity to be able to apply for under the self-sponsorship role. There will be a COS allocated under 2433, and they can be able to proceed to apply for that. So the idea is, once you form that consultancy, where all the details put together of making sure that we've gone through the process of getting a sponsor license, which there'll be a lot of documentation required, which can be guided. You can be guided on that. Fast tracking that we've got those processes complete, we have a sponsor license, then it is possible to have that. The next business idea under this heading of construction engineering would be structural engineering consultancy, or civil engineering and infrastructure services. You can structure a business in any of those two realms. And with that, you can extract the roles of being a civil engineer or even a structural engineer. If any of those aligns with what qualifications you've got, then they would all fall in the category and the SOC code 2121, which essentially the business aims at designing and assessing infrastructure projects. And what to bear off is these services, they offer services to architects, developers, and perhaps local councils. They could also include loading analysis and building of designs, and just even to the extent of doing compliance checks. Can be focused on doing roadworks, drainages, and site development. The key thing to bear is that there is a code, and there's a code 2121, which would fall in within that auspice. So anybody with those qualifications, it is possible to structure consultancy and engineering, structural engineering consultancy, or civil engineering infrastructure services. The next one could consider is under the heading of engineering design and surveying. Again, this also involves planning infrastructure and conducting surveys and ensures health and safety are complied with. Again, there is a specific code assigned to that, which will be able to support this role, where one structures their business in that manner, which is a civil engineer under code 2121. A civil engineer role would be eligible under the skilled worker roles, and it's an acceptable code, and we could be able to use that to structure a role for someone, subject to meeting the minimum salary rates. The next type of business idea one could consider is a green building design. Green building design, again, this is would normally be targeted at promoting sustainable construction or methods. Again, the title or the role that will be qualifying for this, it would be one of the other architectural technologist, and there's a code assigned to it by the Home Office under code 2435. Again, if this fills in within somebody's realms of expertise and interest, just to let them know that there is a permissible route that one can embark on that section. The next one that follows idea as well, very close to the one I just mentioned, is green building and sustainable farm. Again, same thing. However, on this one, we could have you under the job role of environmental consultant, and that would come with it as a code 2142. Again, the role here would be to providing passive house designs and energy audits, where we need to audit that on an ecosystem and material being used. This is closely aligned with the UK's net zero ambition and green build regeneration program. So if anybody is working in those sector under the green building sustainability projects, then they can build a green building sustainability business. The other business idea that one could form is to the project management services, where you essentially just manage projects, or alternatively form a construction project management firm. Your firm would essentially be focused on acting as site supervision roles, contractor coordination, and overseeing timelines and budgets as that be allocated per project. Um, the qualifying title here is what we're looking at here. What role would one assign themselves? And one can be assigned the role of a project manager, bracket construction, which comes with a qualifying code 2436. Again, subject to meeting the salary threshold, minimum of 41,700 per year. That would be a qualifying role. The next business idea one could form is to form an MEP design firm, essentially designing mechanical or electrical systems. That's what they specialize on, and that would clearly just attract the role of an electrical engineer under the code 2123. Quite straightforward. Now, the other business consultancy or idea somebody could form is a BIM consultancy, where one is designing, implementation, buildings, information, and modeling. And the role that would be eligible in that particular category is one of a design and development engineer. Again, very helpfully, we have a qualifying code for that, which is 2126. Yeah. Now, moving on to even more complicated stuff, we have the modular and prefabricated housing company. This is a business that focuses on prefabricated housing, where you design and manufacture and install modular homes. The focus is on affordability and sustainability. Again, the role that would qualify in this particular route, if your business is that way inclined, is you could call yourself as design engineer or a production manager, and respectively, the qualifying codes will be 2126 and 1121. So any of those roles, if your business idea is focused on modular and sustainable projects, then I think that is something which would be able to work for you as a consultancy. And then we have just the general construction consultancy, or precast, which is now the new modern way people are building. It's quite a new thing. Again, the services include overseeing construction projects, budgeting, compliance, and site coordination, just using again the modular building components, where using precast manufacturing material. And the role that one could append on that particular route, if you decide to form a business that focus on construction consultancy or precast manufacturing, is as a production manager, and we have a helpful code of 1121, which should be able to fit in, again subject to a salary threshold which can be guided. Then we have one may also consider to have an urban planning consultancy, which essentially is advising on the zoning areas and the land use on a particular place, if that is a specialty, although this could be combined with other areas. But if one focuses specifically on that, then we're looking at appearing as a town planner, and we would have a helpful code which is provided on code 2432, which can be able to be used to that. And again, this is subject to the salary thresholds, or which are normally stipulated there, and we can guide on that. And last but not least, then we'd have a business that is focused on geotechnical services. This is normally where one to be able to look at providing soil assessing services and foundation conditions, where there's a need for that. This is quite a niche area focused normally by geotechnical engineers as the job role, and can be supported by code 2121. And last but not least, for this particular sector for today, and as I said, it's not exhausted, one could consider starting a construction cost analysis business, where the aim is to guide on budgets and optimizing budgets and procurement purposes, where they would just provide the service of procurement and budgets. This would be able to, this attracts the role of a civil engineer, again, which is supported under code 2129, and subject to meeting the salary threshold, it is possible to embark on that particular business as a venture. Now, and I know I've gone very quickly on just highlighting the business models and the examples, and of course, given the respective codes and just some of the roles that could be assigned to them. It's very important when you're going on self-sponsorship route. The job roles are very important. You get the job wrong, and the whole thing is messed up. That's why we always have to be able to make sure that we can be able to assign you. When embarking on self-sponsorship in any of these routes, and as I mentioned to you, we this today's series session, series 3, focus on construction. We have last week we dealt on technology and digital innovation, and the other week we dealt with professional roles. We're going to be looking at now healthcare and life sciences, which we'll be looking at both regulated and non-regulated services, which there are just as many non-regulated services which do not require CQC regulation if we're looking at health. I know the moment we mention health, everybody is always assuming that we are only focusing on the regulated sectors, but there are non-regulated sectors which we'll mention in due course as next week's series 4. Having mentioned all those, it's good to see people here. Welcome, CLD on board, and Tom, good to see you. I wanted to welcome some questions. These people have got just general questions on self-sponsorship, how it works, the setting up the structures. Those roles are technical and specific roles, which either one qualifies or they don't, and you'd know if you do. And for us, what we'll be able to guide with to make sure that we are able to align your business, whatever venture it may be. I mentioned quite a few of them there, but we'll be able to align your business to make sure that it's genuine. It has to be a genuine business, compliant business, and the role must be a genuine role. And the business must also be able to demonstrate that it is self-sustaining. The mistake people do is they make a massive investment in the business and hope that that will be sufficient for the purpose of meeting the Home Office scrutiny. Whereas that is helpful in meeting the startup cost. But what's key is the fact that we're able to demonstrate that the business model, the financial planning, and the forecast seems to demonstrate that the business is sustainable, i.e. it's enough to meet the salary of the prospective employee and also the other overheads that may be incidental to it. That's just a broad summary. I would like to welcome any questions. People may have any questions. Happy to take them here. Then we'll give you a way forward. We've got anybody have any question to ask? I've got Tekla asking how much is required to apply for a license. I think there are home office costs, Tekla, and that's a good question. We have to think of home office costs as well as the business setup costs. There'll be other, the license is just for one thing, and that will be about 576 from last time I checked, but it's about 500, just under 600 pounds. I don't have the exact figure, but I can check that for you later if you get in touch. But it's under 600, but it's about 576, I think I recall. But that is not all you have to consider. There are other costs you need to bear in mind, such as the setup cost of the business plans and the rest, and of course having to have accountants involved. But I'll be happy to discuss this with you in detail if you want to know specifically how this would pan out, and obviously we need to know more about your business as well. I hope that helps. Does anybody else have any other question they wish to ask on what we've covered so far? Yes, I see no questions are coming, and I think Eric has helpfully sent there. We have the next series will be on health and education, where we'll be looking at, next series will be health and life science. We'll be looking at the various businesses one may wish to consider when forming this sort of businesses. And there are various businesses that can be classed under the health and life sciences. Now, I have briefly mentioned Good evening, Lawrence. Good to see you. Yes, thank you, TechLight 576. I think was not too far off. Yeah, thank you. Now, looking at the whole concept, so we've talked about how it works. Who can use it? Who can use it? Just to recap again, it can be used by anybody on any visa wish to change. It could be, for instance, somebody who's on a student visa. They're coming towards the end of their visa, and they want to consider other options. It could be somebody who's just finishing their engineering degree or any other degree. A key factor to remember now is that having qualifications up to RQF level 6 and above, which is a degree level, is quite central to this. Prior to this, we were able to assist those without degrees. However, things have changed now. You must, at the very least, have a degree. Now, it's important to know that the business that one sets up is a genuine business, and the genuine vacancy requirement will be required, where we have to demonstrate that there is actually indeed a genuine vacancy that does exist. And of course, you have to bear the business setup cost, procedures, where we have to have the company register the company, as I mentioned earlier, have all the tax compliance, any other required, looking at opening a bank account, which with the bank that is registered with the Financial Conduct Authority and also Prudential Regulation Authority in the UK. Then, of course, need to have the proof of registration of VAT and PAYE for the business. And of course, there will be a requirement to show that the business has taken the required insurance, employer's liability insurance, up to a minimum of 5 million from an authorized insurance regulated by FCA. And of course, we will need to demonstrate that we have the proof who are the owners of the business, and we can show that. There is no harm in the employees being recruited being an owner. It doesn't cause any detriment. And of course, the premises that must be used, we need to demonstrate that we have the relevant documentation, like a lease and so on and so forth. And of course, the accounts, if the business has been trading, we have to show the most recent accounts. If it's a new business, of course, we have to show the bank accounts opened, and of course, how this is going to support itself. And lastly, but not least, we need to have a business plan with a cash flow that's realistic, that shows that the business is going to be sustainable. I think that gives you an overview of what's required in that sector. I wonder if anybody has any qualms and questions with that particular aspect, and or somebody wants to raise. Just type it on the chat. If you have any question, please type it there. I'll be happy to look at it. But for those who are joining us for the first time, again, as I said, make sure you subscribe to YouTube, because we have this for the next 11 weeks. As we said, this is week 3. And week 4, we'll be touching on, just for you to note, week 4 will be the healthcare and life sciences. And then, of course, week 5, we'll be dealing with creative and education services, where we look at what sort of business ventures one can create in the sector. And of course, logistics and operation will be there week 6. And week 7, we'll look at business and financial. And week 8, retail and consumer. 9, marketing online and beauty and health. That covers what we prepared for today. I hope this is helpful. If you want to know more, please go to the YouTube channel and just download the ones we've done before and watch them. If you want to have a chat one-on-one for any sector that you feel is relevant to you, feel free to get in touch. My contact details are there. You can reach me on my WhatsApp, or alternatively, just drop me an email, or go through our website and just fill in the form. And we'll be able to arrange a one-on-one and be able to look at that. Unless there are any questions, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you at the next session again next week, when we will look at the next series. Thank you all, and have a wonderful weekend.